Welcome back to the next presentation in our series designed to help businesses making small amounts of hazardous waste comply with New Hampshire's hazardous waste rules. This presentation will review the questions on page 5 to get a little bit more information about your hazardous waste activities and provide some reminders. It's also the page where you sign off that you finished the form. So let's get going. On page 5, section G, we ask, who's moving your hazardous waste? In this section of the form, we want to know whether your hazardous waste is moved using a professional hazardous waste transporter, whether you are moving it yourself using one of the special exemptions available and the details on that, or whether you just didn't have to move any hazardous waste in the last 3 years because you just didn't make that much. Chances are this is a pretty easy question for you to answer, but since we want you to understand the rules, let's take a look at these in more detail. Most likely, you're having a professional hazardous waste transporter come to your facility to pick up your waste. But what makes a transporter a professional hazardous waste transporter? For starters, they have to be registered with NHDES. That means that we've done a basic investigation of them and have approved them to carry your dangerous waste over public roads. When a transporter is registered with NHDES, they can put a registration number on their vehicle. This starts with the letters T and H, followed by a 4-digit number. If you have a transporter come to your business that doesn't have a registration number on the vehicle, don't use them. You can absolutely check beforehand though by checking our website or give a call to our staff at 603-271-2921. In some cases, a very small quantity generator can self-transport up to 55 gallons of their own hazardous waste and eliminate the cost of a professional transporter. This is only allowed in special situations though. The first, more common situation is if a business is going to bring their hazardous waste to a community household hazardous waste collection event. Since these events are meant for households, there are some restrictions and not all businesses are allowed to bring their waste to them. We'll talk about this more on the next slide. A second, less common example is if the business that owns the facility also owns other hazardous waste generator sites in New Hampshire, and one of them is a small or large quantity generator. Again, we'll go into more detail on another slide. And the last scenario is if the waste is self-transported to a facility authorized to accept the hazardous waste from the VSQG. In this case, the VSQG must obtain a hazardous waste manifest and submit it to NHDES. In all cases, the hazardous waste must be transported in containers that are compatible with the waste being transported and are sealed and labeled in accordance with DOT requirements. Also, the VSQG must have a mechanism for financial responsibility in case of an accident, such as insurance that meets the minimum coverage. If any of these instances apply to you and you aren't sure of the rules that allow it, please contact us directly for more information so we can help you do it correctly. As I mentioned on the previous slide, household hazardous waste collection events are designed to collect waste from homeowners, not businesses. In some instances, the town or organization that is running the event will allow a business to bring their waste directly to the registered hazardous waste transporter collecting at the site. It is not a guarantee that the town or the transporter will give permission, so if that is the case, the generator would need to make arrangements with the registered hazardous waste transporter for the waste to be picked up directly from the VSQG place of business. Again, the business must get prior approval from the town and the transporter well in advance of the event so they can work out the details ahead of time. At that point, the VSQG can connect with the transporter to let them know their EPA ID number, what type of waste they will be bringing, how it should be packaged, and the cost of disposal. The VSQG will have to pay the transporter directly, and the disposal is not free since this is not household waste, but it will be discounted since they won't have to pay the expensive pickup fees that transporters charge just to get to the place of business. And last, the hazardous waste must be shipped using a uniform hazardous waste manifest with the VSQG's EPA ID number on it. It should not be commingled with the household hazardous waste because it's not generated from a household. If you arrive at the event and the transporter does not have a hazardous waste manifest for you to sign, or says that you can just leave your waste anyway since you don't have a lot, do not leave your waste with them. This is illegal disposal if you do not obtain a hazardous waste manifest. Once you get that manifest copy with your signature and the transporter's signature, you are then required to send it to NHDES within 5 days of the event, as we discussed in previous presentations. The other self-transport option that we mentioned is if a VSQG has the same owner as a generator that creates more waste and is notified as an SQG or LQG. In these cases, those businesses that make a significant amount of hazardous waste have more regulations and are allowed to accumulate the additional waste from a VSQG that is under the same ownership. This way, you still have to hire a transporter to pick up waste at the larger generator site, but you eliminate the expense of a transporter going to the VSQG business and charging an extra pickup fee or milk run. In this situation, the larger generator must notify NHDES that they will be consolidating VSQG hazardous waste using the RCRA site identification form prior to receiving the waste. While the VSQG doesn't need to use a hazardous waste manifest while self-transporting the waste, they should use some sort of tracking document like a bill of landing. When the larger generator does ship off the waste, they would ship with a registered transporter on a hazardous waste manifest with their EPID number, not the VSQG's, since the waste is leaving from their facility and they've taken responsibility for it. The VSQG still does have to count this waste as waste they generated at their facility when figuring out their generator status and completing the VSQG form. In addition, the receiving facility must also count this waste they are receiving towards their monthly generator status. In section H on page 5, it's really a notice, not a checkbox. Here we want to make you aware that if you know of any hazardous waste from your business that was released to the environment, you are required by law to report it to us. While we hope this never happens to you, it's incredibly important that releases of hazardous waste get taken care of as soon as possible. By not reporting a release, that waste has the potential to become a much bigger problem. It can be intimidating to call the state and say that something bad happened, but honestly, most problems don't go away on their own, and it looks better for you if you volunteer information instead of waiting for something worse to happen, or if we find out later. We also hope that if you're filling out this form and find something that isn't right, you fix it right away. But if, by chance, there's something that can't be fixed before you send in the form, tell us how you're going to take care of it. When you send in your form, include a statement that describes the steps you're taking to fix the problem and when you expect it to be done. When everything is corrected, tell us again. This can be done by mail or email to let us know that your business is back in compliance. But don't let it take longer than 90 days. The last item on this page is a final checklist before you send the completed form back to us. If you are a VSQG that always has less than 440 pounds of non-acute hazardous waste at your business, the next slide will help you review this checklist. But if you're one of the many businesses that have a total of more than 440 pounds of hazardous waste at your site, review the presentation for page 6 and the extended accumulation provisions before you sign off on this form. It's the last page you need to complete before submitting the form. We understand that as a business operator, you have a lot of competing priorities. Everything has to be done, and it all has to be done yesterday. It's easy to overlook even the simplest of items when you're filling out this form. So we ask you to take a deep breath, pause, and go through this checklist so the self-certification can be taken care of in one shot, and we won't have to pester you to make corrections. The first item on this checklist is whether you told us on your form that you have items in sections E or F that aren't in compliance. If so, well, we want you to fix them. So unless they were something that you were unable to fix before you had to send us the form and you had included a corrective action plan, we're going to come back to you with questions about getting these items fixed. The second item on the list is a reminder to sign and date the form. Sounds simple, right? It's surprising how many people forget to do that, but it happens. A lot. Please don't be one of those folks that make us shake our head. Third on this list is a reminder to include the fee. Generally, this is $420, but it's possible that a different amount is requested. For example, your business may have started making hazardous waste 2 years prior to the self-certification, and you're asked to catch up by paying those 2 years past when you hadn't certified. Whatever the amount, checks should be made out to Treasurer, State of New Hampshire. If you prefer to pay by credit card or e-check, you can do so online. NHDES no longer accepts payments made by phone. Next, we remind you that in addition to this self-certification form with all of its checkboxes, we want you to review the RCRA Site Identification Form, also known as the RCRA form or the Notification Form. If there was incorrect information on that form, please update it with the correct information and send that back with the self-certification form. Lastly, remember that if you have items you know are out of compliance, but you honestly can't correct them before the self-certification is due, include a corrective action plan explaining what you're doing to come back into compliance. And that should wrap it up. Congratulations and thank you for helping to protect the environment and everyone in it from unsafe handling of hazardous waste. From here, our last advice is to keep a copy of your completed form for your personal records, and a blank form as well to use as reference to checking on your compliance periodically. Why wait 3 years to review these things again? After you submit your form and we review them from all the businesses in the program, we reply with a certificate of completion. Because so many businesses submit forms and because many of these require a lot of follow-up with the businesses to get them complete and accurate, these certifications are usually delivered around June. But don't worry, these certificates are just a courtesy and you are not required to have them on site. If you're feeling uncertain that you're doing things right and aren't comfortable contacting us directly, we have 2 assistance programs at NHDES that can provide help. Our Small Business Technical Assistance Program and our Pollution Prevention Program are both available to lend a hand with completing the self-certification form. They are free, non-regulatory programs, and they're also great folks to work with. The Small Business Technical Assistance Program can be reached at 603-271-1379, and the Pollution Prevention Program can be reached at 603-271-6460. Here again is the contact information for these 2 groups. These programs can assist with more than just this form, so you may want to save their contact information for future reference. This concludes our presentation. You've finished 5 pages of the form. Nice job. For many of you, this finishes the form. For those of you that have more than 440 pounds of hazardous waste at your business, be sure to watch the presentation for page 6. We have more presentations to help you understand these and other regulations. But if you'd just like to talk to a person, we want to help. Give us a call at one of these numbers on your screen during normal working hours. Please leave a message if we don't connect and we'll return your call. If email is your preference, we've got you covered. You can reach us at vsqg@des.nh.gov.